Well, good afternoon, Rebecca. I'm glad to talk to you. Uh, I have to lead off with referencing your song "Don't Call Me Honey." Um, where I am an old fart. I am close to twice your age, I'm going to guess. I'm not going to call you anything bad, but I am going to give you a lot of respect and props. What I've heard in the last couple of weeks has blown my little chillistic mind as to what you can do on the instrument. So I'm really quite glad to talk to you, and I'm glad to hear that you're going to be coming to our area and doing a show. And yes, I already have tickets for myself. And by the way, the looked like the hall was selling pretty well. So hopefully we'll have a very good crowd for you. Um, when we were off air, you mentioned that you were in Juneau, Alaska, and I'm curious how did you get there? What took you there? Have you been there before?
No, this is our first time. We are based in San Francisco, but we are sort of a world traveling band.
Hmm.
And this is actually our first tour to Alaska. So we're very excited. Our first show is tonight in Juneau. And then we are flying to Anchorage, and we're going to do two shows there. And funnily enough, one of the shows we're going to do is on a musk ox farm because we're a band that doesn't take ourselves too seriously. We like to do fun things, and we like to go to very odd and off the beaten path kind of places. So, of course, we're going to be playing at a musk ox farm.
Well, why not? Next time you come up here, we'll have to get you in front of the llamas, uh,
I would love
or
that.
some sheep or something. Yeah, I read in some of the PR material that you've sent out that you've had some unusual gigs in some unusual places. The weirdest I ever played was an acoustic string quartet concert in the middle of a rave in a concrete warehouse at 2 o'clock in the morning, where everybody was bombed out of their mind, and the speakers were taller than I was, and then the music was horribly loud, and they really wanted us to play acoustically just to get the sense of where we all started. I don't think anybody heard a thing. Um, but if you can tell us some of the other places you've played that were a bit unusual, I'm thinking of Iceland and perhaps we have Nude Beach in Seattle, but you played at a whole resort.
We have played at the bottom of Moaning Cavern, so bottom of a cave, where we had to lug all our equipment down. I don't know, something like 80 stairs. So that was an unusual concert. Probably the most recent one that was pretty strange is we played on a whale watching boat in Iceland. And the bad news is that whales do not like the cello. But the passengers on board the boat appreciated it, so I think that was good enough. But yeah, it was so rocky out there. We had our four-piece band with us that we had to actually take down the drum set to the deck so that it would not go fling itself off into the water.
I'll have to say that another gig I played up here, which was out at Limekill, if you've ever been out there, where there's a lovely lighthouse, and it's kind of a wedding destination spot. And we were waiting for the bride to come down, traipsing down the aisle and or down the rocky hill, and I'm playing cello, and all of a sudden everybody starts streaming to the water to go watch the whales. And I kept playing, and they kept getting closer. So I, it must have just been a mood thing that day, because I think whales do like music. And in fact, in about I think it's 2 days actually, there's going to be something called a whale sing, where various members of the community will be on a bluff out on the west side of things trying to sing to whales. So we do our best. Um, so tell me, how did you get started in cello in the first place, and then later into the rock and roll and blues and Americana side of things?
Well, my mom is a piano teacher, and she put me on the piano when I was 6 and a half.
Hmm.
And then she wanted to put me on another instrument, different from my sister. My sister was playing violin. And so my mom suggested the harp. But we did not have a big enough car.
Okay.
But if we did, we'd probably be called Dirty Harp instead of Dirty Cello.
Hmm.
So instead, she said, "Do you want to play the cello?" I didn't know what it was, but I said yes. And I ended up taking private lessons ever since I was, 6 and a half, and was a music major in college. I got out of college and I quickly made it into some professional orchestras, which I'm still in today, the Santa Rosa Symphony and the
Okay.
Oakland Symphony, which is all in California.
Hmm.
But then I realized probably about 12 years ago, I wanted to let my hair down and do something completely different. And so I started experimenting with improvising on my instrument.
Hmm.
And how that got its start was I was in a competition called Vallejo's Got Talent.
Okay.
And it's exactly how you would picture it. It was in the basement of a bookstore. And I won first place. I started off with a Bach suite, a very classical piece.
Okay.
And in the middle of it, I stopped and I played Rock You Like a Hurricane by the Scorpions, trying out some, rock cello. I ended up winning first, which sounds impressive, although in second place was a 12-year-old girl playing Disney songs. But after the concert, people came up to me and they said, "Oh, I love the rock cello. I'd love to buy a CD." And I said, "That is the only song that I know." So after that, I realized that I was onto something.
Hmm.
And I joined with my husband who was on guitar, and we just started going out to little cafes and sort of experimenting with this whole rock cello thing. We'd also play blues and bluegrass and just a whole bunch of type of music and see how audiences would respond.
Hmm.
And fortunately, they were responding good because this was not going to be like a serious like musical choice I was going to make. This was just going to be for fun. I mean, we would go to cafes and we were paid in pastries,
Hmm.
and sometimes they would run out of pastries, and that was that was a little rough. But after a while, people were really liking us and we were getting a following, and we started growing the band. And after a while, after 12 years of this, which we're on our 12th year now, we toured everywhere from Iceland 3 times to Italy to we're going to Singapore and Bali later this year.
Mm.
And all over the world, and of course the San Juan Islands.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's become a very successful not only adventure but business.
Yeah. I understand that from what I've seen. You guys have something like 13 record albums available for sale, including a Christmas CD or Christmas music. And I will say your music is extremely eclectic. You in one album you backed up klezmer to I'm not sure if it was this boots were made for walking, but it was the the juxtapositions were amazing and wonderful with that. Um, as I've mentioned to you privately, I'm a cellist also, and I've dipped my toe into that genre a little bit. And what's most frightening for me is the improv part of things. And I'm curious to hear how you might have started developing that and what gave you the confidence to just keep doing it.
That's a good question because I was 100% resistant on ever improvising. I'm a classically trained musician, and I was always like, no, I got to read what's on the page. There's no way I can improvise. And I remember I saw a Craigslist ad, and it was from this blues guitarist. He says, "I need an improvising cellist for a concert, 1 hour, $100." And I remember saying to my husband, who's the guitar player, Jason Eckel, I remember saying to him, I wish I could improvise because that seems like a really easy $100. And
Hmm.
he's always very encouraging. He's like, "Of course you can improvise. You just have to go for it. You just have to do it." And so that was the first concert that I ever improvised to. And I don't know how good I was. I just remember listening to his CD over and over and just trying to grab a couple notes here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at the concert, he's like, he kind of nodded at me, like, take a solo. And I took one. I don't really remember it too well because it was pretty scary in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
but the audience applauded. And I remember thinking, okay, I need to do more of this. This is the most freeing, wonderful thing. And then I started learning how to improvise by listening and sort of kind of figuring it out on my own with a lot of help from Jason.
Mm-hmm.
And now I help others learn how to improvise on string instruments. It's so much fun, and it's really not as hard as people think. It really isn't. It's just having the confidence to go for it.
Great, because you're going to come up and we're going to sneak in an hour amongst us chickens, so to speak, um, teaching some of us island folk how to improvise just before you get on stage. So I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Me too.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Um, it, Again, I'm a cello geek, so I have to ask these questions. The cello you're using for most of your stage work with the band, it's a carbon fiber instrument. Is that correct?
It is, and the reason I ended up getting that was a couple reasons. I was supping with the San Francisco Ballet Orchestra, and I had my wooden cello, and I had another concert right afterwards, and I was rushing. And I remember I had the cello case on my back. I set it down, and I quickly turned and I knocked over the cello case. Well, when I went home and I opened it, the whole neck had cracked off. And it
Ah,
just shows you how fragile cellos are.
mm-hmm.
And I thought this is my moment. I'm going to try a carbon fiber cello. And ever since I got it, I haven't looked back. It's great to travel with. It's been on tour to China 2 times in 106-degree weather, and the strings won't even go out of tune. When I go on an airplane, I don't have to buy a seat for it on the plane like you do for wooden cellos. I can just put it in luggage. So
Ah.
I absolutely love it.
And how do you like the sound that you get acoustically from it?
I think the sound is really wonderful. It's easy to play. It's very bright. A wooden old cello always will sound better, but this is a great second best kind of sound.
Okay, and most of what you're doing, I assume, runs through electronics um, and effects and things like that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so do you carry a pedal with you on stage and play around with it and things like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah. It's amazing how you have to put pedals on the cello to make it sound like a cello. If you just plug without the pedals, it sounds a little harsh. So, yeah,
mhm.
people will get to see what that sounds like.
Okay, cool. And I will get to see that stuff up close. I'm, like I said, very excited. Um, so I know your husband, Jason, is part of the band and he plays guitar. Is that right? Who else is in your band?
We've got our drummer and our bass player coming on tour. Most of the time, we perform as a 5 or 6 piece, but on this tour, it'll just be a 4 piece.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so our drummer is Josh Mellinger, and our bass player is Colin Williams.
Hmm. And have you been working with these folks for this whole time, or there been some switching out in the band and stuff like that?
There's always switching out with bands, people moving or taking a different job or things like that. But we've been with these guys for several past years.
Hmm. Okay, cool. Um, with your husband and you working together, does that work on the road for you guys?
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine not doing it with him. It's just, he's my best friend and we get to play music together. And not only are we playing music together, but we also get to tour where we're going. So, for
Hmm.
example, when we're coming on June 22nd to the San Juan Community Theater, well, we're going to, spend part of the day doing things, doing fun things like, teaching a workshop on improvising, maybe
Hmm.
going to a couple things to see on the island. But yeah, we make a vacation out of it. So it's pretty awesome.
Oh, good, good. I'm taking a guess here, but you don't have children?
No,
Okay, so that makes it pretty easy because
Yes.
as a working cellist, I had to have a home base for the kid to be, and of course my wife, who is, God bless her for putting up with whatever it was I was doing. Um, so, um, all right, good. Uh, some of your songs are original. I know that. I'm pretty sure that "Don't Call Me Honey" would be one that you wrote, and I'm curious if you did. Uh, where did it come from? How did it come about?
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote that about 8 years ago. 8 years ago, Jason and I, we got married and we also bought our first house all in the same year.
Okay.
And we had never bought a house before. So I was dealing with a loan agent on the phone and I would ask him a bunch of questions. And at first it was great because he would answer them. But then after a while, he would answer my questions and then he would call me baby, sweetie, or honey, or something like that. And I should have said something. Now I would. But instead, I ended up writing the song
hmm
and Don't Call Me Honey. And it's really resonated with a lot of people every time I sing it. So that makes me feel better and makes the audience feel good.
I would hope that you would play that in the islands up here. You would. We tend to be a rather libertarian sort of bunch of people, and I picked it. I looked at that song and went, yeah, I, I understand that very well. What are some other songs that you came up with that you particularly, I don't know, enjoyed creating?
There's another one that we're gonna perform. We will definitely perform "Don't Call Me Honey." I love performing that one. There's a one that my husband and I wrote called "I May Not Be Perfect, but I'm Pretty Damn Good."
hmm
The story behind that is we were having an argument one day, and I don't even remember what it was about, but I ended up saying to him as like kind of a rebuttal, "Look, I may not be perfect, but I'm pretty damn good." And
hmm
he kind of stopped the argument for a second, which probably wasn't the wisest thing to do. And he said, "I need to write that down. That's a really good song lyric." And so then we went back to fighting, but it did become a song. And we've, that was like year one of our band being together that we wrote that song and people love it. So we've not stopped performing it.
hmm Okay. Great. I like that. I It resonates with me because I have had similar conversations with my wife. None of them turned into songs. Um, so um, I know that I would guess that the reason you wrote Southwest Airlines Blues, for instance, is fairly obvious. You had luggage chasing you around the world for a while.
Yeah, that one's an old one. Oh, we haven't done that one in a while. But the Southwest Airline Blues, basically, we landed. We had a concert that day. They lost most of my luggage. I usually stand up when I play the cello, so
hmm
all of that was in luggage. So
Ooh.
I had to sit at the concert. I didn't have all my pedals. It was a bit of a mess, and so we were pretty pissed. So we're like, let's just write a song about it. And people, it resonates with people also.
Oh, of
But
course.
you will be doing all sorts of our original songs. I don't want to give it away, but
hmm
there's one called Ballad of the Onion Rings, but I'll let Jason tell the story from the stage.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask
Um,
about that one, so we'll skip it.
yeah, and then of course we have covers that we do. Sometimes when people are new to our band, they don't know what to expect by hearing a cello fronted band. They're expecting classical music or
hmm
serious music. We're definitely not that. We're a fun, energetic, silly band, but more importantly, we're a rock and blues band, and so you're going to hear a cello shredding on this stuff instead of a guitar, and it's pretty fun to see. So we'll be doing everything from like Jimi Hendrix to Guns N' Roses, and we have a good time.
Yes, I can see that from the videos that I was able to find and look at, and they were very entertaining. I'm dog sitting at the moment for a friend, and my dog and that dog were looking at me as I'm capering around dancing to your music, going, "What is that wild man doing today?" It was very entertaining. Um, the you mentioned the equipment that you were using, and I know that you, when you're playing the cello on stage, you're standing up much of the time. Did you have to create the stand for that, or is that something that is regularly available?
No, Jason actually created the stand for me. That is prototype number three.
Hmm.
The first two took up too much space, and my feet didn't have enough room to maneuver. But you'll see this one on June 22nd at the San Juan Community Theater. This one is fantastic. It almost looks like the cello is standing up by itself.
That's what I was going to say is because I've ventured into that territory a little, and yeah, things get very slippery very quickly, and it looks like you're just solidly into it and able to do what you want with the instrument. So kudos, and I want to steal that stand when you get around to it. Um, so in your musical development, you must have done a fair amount of singing to go along with your cello and piano practice too. Can you tell us about that, where that came from and all that?
Absolutely. When I was younger, I just loved singing around the house, but it wasn't something I was ever going to make as part of a career. In fact, when we started Dirty Cello, we realized we wanted a singer in the band just to have some variety to our music.
Hmm.
And so we would hire singers, but the singers weren't always available.
Hmm.
They didn't tend to, the ones that we hired didn't tend to learn very fast. It was pretty frustrating. And so again, Jason was like, Rebecca, you should sing. And I said, I'm not a singer, I'm a cello player.
Hmm.
But after some convincing, I was so nervous about doing that. I started singing on stage, and then gradually, as time went on, I got more confident, and now I love it. Like I can't imagine not singing in the band. So it was just it was done out of necessity, and I'm really glad that happened.
I would have to agree in some of the music you've done that I've heard. The voice is certainly yours, but there's different styles that you do quite well. I was thinking of Summertime, for instance, on one of those. You managed to sound kind of like a clarinet a little bit. I mean, I know there was a clarinet in the mix, um, but you take on different vocal qualities. When you were doing Jolene, for instance, you and some of your bluegrass stuff, you put a kind of a twang into it, and you alter things just a little bit. Are you conscious of that? Do you do that on purpose?
Um, I try to. I would say yes. I try to really think about what this song is about, what genre it is. I mean, Summertime's more of a jazz
Hmm.
piece, and of course, Jolene can be interpreted as country or bluegrass or even rock. And so I try to make my voice sort of emulate that. So, for example, probably at our show, I'm going to do Dream On, a very classic rock song, and sort of emulate the way that song was created and sing it in a rock style. So yes, I
Hmm.
try to do all the elements that it
Okay.
deserves.
Yeah. Well, it works as far as I'm concerned. So great. Um, are you still playing in symphonies in California when you have a chance? Your touring schedule is pretty busy right now.
Yeah, I took a sabbatical the last 2 years because I got my master's in music, and I probably won't be coming back to the orchestras because all our weekends have gotten booked, and pretty much we're booking into 2025.
Nice.
Um, so probably won't be doing orchestras anymore.
Okay. That's okay. What was the reaction in with your colleagues in the orchestras when you started branching out and doing these other things?
Well, honestly, at first I was worried. I was thinking, oh, they're gonna look down on that kind of thing. But actually, they thought it was cool, so they were very supportive, and it was great.
Good, because have to smack them around if they weren't. Um, okay, well, I think we'll wrap up in just a second, but one last question. Do you still play box suites?
Definitely. In fact, one of the things we do is at our concerts, we take requests. So usually Jason will say, okay, does anybody have any requests? And sometimes audience members shout out what they want to hear. And a lot of times somebody will say, I want to hear something classical, and I'll do a box suite. Shoot, if someone says it on the San Juan Islands, they want to hear something classical, I'll play the box suite for them.
Okay, good. There you go, folks. I won't be the one asking because that would be leading the leading things, but you have the opportunity. Um, well, I want to wish you safe travels back to the States. Oh, I guess I do have one last question, just sort of logistically. Are you guys flying around with an entire band and all your kits and all of that?
Fortunately, our drummer is driving, so that's going to make it easy. Our bass player is flying. Myself and Jason are flying. We rent a car. I
Mm-hmm.
think the only trouble we're going to have is all the ferries we're going to have to take that weekend because we are playing June 22nd at the San Juan Community
Mm-hmm.
Theater. The next day, we're taking a ferry and we're going to Orcas
Orcas.
Island. We're playing at their outside concert series. And then the next day on that Monday, we're playing at Lopez Community Theater.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will be the hardest part of our travels is the ferries because we have experienced them before.
Oh, okay, good. Because as we were preparing to do things, one of the first things I was like, please get up here early and please give yourself lots of time because things are not. I don't know if you were here during pandemic times. Well, I guess not because it was a pandemic, but we've experienced quite a bit of stress from the ferries and with the ferries and the folks who work for the ferries. No blame to them because it's just tough when you don't have enough staff and you have ferries that are older than either of us put together, basically. So it's things don't always work. I had a business shipping groceries as what was supposed to be a part-time gig while I played cello. Um, it morphed into full-time stuff, and a lot of it had to do with traveling in between islands, which was usually reliable. It's much less reliable, so we hope you get to the ferry early and often. So,
Thank you.
um,
Will do.
all right. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you. I really look forward to seeing you here. I hope lots of my neighbors and friends on all of the islands will make a chance to see you. Again, the dates are Friday, the 22nd of June here in Friday Harbor at the San Juan Community Theater, 7:30 p.m. Then you'll be on Orcas on the 23rd, and then you'll be on Lopez on the 24th. Where will you be at Lopez? Do you know?
Lopez, it's the theater there. So we're going to be there on. Let me just check the date here.
Should be
It's
the
going to be on June 24th.
okay. So it's probably the Lopez Center. So
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, okay, good. It's a lovely space, and there's a very good grocery store right across the street. Like I said, I shipped groceries. Anyway, thank you very much for making time for you. I hope you have a great show tonight. And at the muskox farm, we'll want to see pictures.
Oh,
And
sure.
all the best to you. And I look forward to seeing you in a week.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, you take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.